Hi, I'm Dave Henning with the Fresh Start Podcast, fresh ideas for business and personal growth. And today my guest is Gail Swift from Las Vegas.
Oh,
You said, my intention is to serve your listeners with content that will change their lives. Your pattern predicts your path. Success is the freedom to be yourself. That's a quote from Kathy Kolbe. Has that pronounced Kolbe?
it is. Yes,
Oh, not like the Colby cheese, though. That's different. That's
it is different, but it's pronounced the same. You're exactly right on that, Dave. Very good analogy. Or the Colby beef. I get that too. Or that's Kobe, actually. Kobe.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Where's the beef?
Right.
That's an. I'm an old advertising guy, so I love this stuff going way back when to these old experts. It's just interesting stuff.
Yeah, me too. I was in advertising for like 12 years.
Were you really doing what? What were you doing?
Selling air. I worked at KBJR in Duluth. I worked at CCO in Minneapolis, and then I worked at WMTV in Madison, Wisconsin.
Awesome. All TV or some radio?
All TV, but the only market where they asked me that radio was more popular was CCO in Minneapolis because the radio station there was super popular. So every time I said that, they're like, radio? Like they were excited, radio? And I was like, nope, CBS affiliate. No.
Oh, cool. Very cool. Well, yeah, I worked at 10 radio stations around the United States, and I always wanted to be a rock and roll disc jockey, got my wish, and then did some talk show stuff. And then to give myself a raise, I went to the sales department, wrote thousands of commercials and did all that kind of stuff. But I loved it, loved the advertising industry. And you do have a great voice for radio, by the way, just saying.
I was used for the VOSOTs a lot. I was... Because I was free talent. I worked there. So they utilized me in spots and ads and all sorts of things. Nice.
Very nice. Very cool. I love it. So you are fiercely committed to guiding students and to achieve the confidence to take action. I was a very shy kid. I need more confidence. You're going to help me out today with my natural abilities, my clarity, and my contribution. What's your background? You told us a little bit about your TV and marketing and advertising experience. That's very cool. And how did you get involved in what you're doing now?
My mom thought I was nuts. My parents, she's like, they both are very methodical, and my dad was an IBM guy and my mom stayed home. She was in sales, but they're both so methodical and they take their time to decide. And I was a bit of a spitfire. I was like, let's just go, let's do it. Let's jump. And they're like, now, right? So my whole life in school, that was hard to be celebrated. I was called unfocused and not able to sit still or whatever the case may be. It just wasn't celebrated. So in 1991, she's like, you know what, let's get this figured out. I've got someone that can help you. We're going to go get your Kolbe test done. I was like, I don't know what that is. Right. So she said that in 1987, Kathy Kolbe, she was from Chicago. She developed this algorithm to measure how I worked. I said, okay, I'll play. So I went to get it done. And for the first time in my life, Dave, this woman was sitting across from me. And she looked at me and she said, Gail, you're born to be last minute.
Wow.
Right? I was like, wait a minute. Let's just sit in that lap for a hot minute. I'm born to be last minute. She said, you get it done. You will always get it done. I was shocked. And then she said, you naturally need a lot of things happening at one time. It just kept getting better and better and better. And when she explained it to me, I felt like for the first time, someone saw me and that I was okay being me, which was fabulous. So in 1991, I got the free ticket, Dave, and I started to be me ever since.
That is so fantastic. I love that. You know, when I was going to high school, I don't think they knew what ADD was, but I had I had a hard time focusing. So now the new upgrade on my iPhone, there's a focus button that I can block everybody out so I can work on stuff.
I didn't even know that existed. Where is that? Is that in settings?
Yeah, it's in the iOS 15 upgrade, which is an optional upgrade. But I was shocked because I once wrote a blog about interruptions. It was called How Interruptions Can Ruin My Day, because I can be like, I'm over, I got to do this. Oh, I got to because I don't want to forget that I got to do this. So I'll do this and get it done. And then a lot of times it's putting out fires, which is not really helpful on getting your getting your focused things done, right?
But look at us now. Look at how we're switching gears, able to go down the rabbit hole and then kind of come back to it. I mean, we're both doing that, right? And it's so great. We're going off on the iOS upgrade and then we're coming back to it. Going to go off on something else and coming back to it. I think it makes it like exciting.
Exactly. Yeah. I've been told that you need to focus on one thing at a time. That is so hard for me to do. But when I do, I get a lot done. Like what you were saying, your very initial question was, if you could spend 4 hours and it seemed like 10 minutes. Yeah, I can do that. I actually like editing my podcast, but it's so cumbersome that it takes us forever. I just enjoy the software and all that kind of stuff. Nevertheless, I'm not going to be doing much of that anymore. I'm shifting to being more of a guest rather than a host. So they can edit it and send it to me.
Way to dump what doesn't serve you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so funny. What I noticed about how I worked when I knew this, Dave, is that, and my coaches, they laugh at me and they're like, Gail, can't you change that? Because I said, I can commit to about 60 to 90 minutes of consistency a day. And that is it.
Yeah.
Like I have that capacity for consistency in my business with my clients, and then I'm done. But doing the same thing over and over and over again sucks me dry.
I hear that. If I stare at my computer too long, I go nuts. I got to go take a bike ride, take a walk, get the heck out of Dodge kind of thing. So I hear what you're saying. But your coaching, you are doing some incredible things to help people, right?
I am. Yes. And especially with kids and even, adults, companies, schools, I work with them all. I would say I work with probably private high schools first, and then families and businesses. But what I do is when I help people or help companies figure out how they work when free to be themselves, their natural pattern for taking action, if it's in their lane, then they're most productive. So if you have a person that is wired to do a certain position, the ideal ring out at the end of the day is you're using that person for everything they're meant to be used for as an employee. If they're not being utilized, you're leaving money on the table. You're leaving their efforts on the table. So it's in that company's best interest to find out how people work, so you're getting everything out of them that you're buying. Does that make sense?
Excellent. Oh, absolutely. I was just visualizing that. One of the things that I do is I like to literally visualize that employee is going to feel so much more comfortable in their job, be much more loyal and committed because they're being appreciated for their strength. I think I heard John Maxwell once say, don't try to strengthen your weaknesses. Just don't do your weaknesses and do your strength. Is that about right?
You and I were in advertising. You were a jock, so you were on air, and I sold. And one of the most common questions I got was from a business. And let's say they did most of their revenue in 2 or 3 months of the year. They called me in their off time and said, Gail, I want to be really busy in my off season. I said, why? Take your highs and make them higher. So if you're a jewelry store and you do most of your revenue in November through February, if you do 70%, do 90%. Like Maxwell said, take your highs and make them higher. It's so much easier to make more money that way than taking your weaknesses, if you want to call it, and trying to change them.
Exactly. This is the second tourist town that I've lived in. I lived in what I call a suburb of Boston, New Hampshire, way up on the big lake. And their whole season, they had to make all of the money between Memorial Day and Labor Day because that's when the 5,000 year-round population went to 15,000 or whatever. So they had to maximize that time. And same thing here. Now here, it's more of the Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year. This town is going to be totally packed with tourists, and all the places are going to be booming for a while. So that's just the way it is. But I have to admit, I was actually spoiled as a disc jockey because I actually have one of my Facebook pages is full-time money for part-time work, to your point of 60 to 90 minutes. So I would be on air for 4 hours. I might be in the production room for maybe another hour. So I was getting paid, quote, full time for working 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
So, so I've been working ever since to get back to that concept as fast as possible.
It's so true. And didn't you give it everything you got? I mean, in the 4 hours? Yeah. No, I was just going to say, I think everyone has a 4-hour sweet spot. Like you and I, like I work best in the morning. So I crank it out in the morning and then I don't worry about it, or I don't spend as much energy on the rest of that time. Does that make sense? I mean, your session, your segment of 4 hours, you just gave them that first piece of the pie. You gave them the best piece of the pie, the point, and then you gave up the rest and you just nailed it. I'm sure all the time.
Well, I had to be there at 5 a.m. to replace the overnight guy at 6 a.m. But back then, you actually had to pull vinyl albums out and stack them up for what you were being told. You're going to be playing these things.
Yeah.
And so speaking of being focused, I was super focused for those 4 hours because you had to be. But it was just getting paid for having fun. I mean, that's kind of my motto in life is you got to have fun and enjoy stuff, right?
And you switch gears and there was a lot going on. You had to play ads and you had to have people you're interviewing and you had to play music. And so you're like riveted in your mind. There was a lot going on, which I'm sure satisfied you.
Right. Exactly. Of course, then we won't go into all the stories about pranks that we would play on each other at radio stations. Yes. So you probably did that in your business a little bit too. Yes.
Yeah.
I almost got fired more than once, but the overnight guy decided to loosen the nut on the boom mic while I was reading a live ad and my microphone was going down and I was going lower in my seat and I started laughing. And early in the morning, my boss is driving in and listening to the station and he calls us in and raked us over the coals for that guy paid for that commercial and you can't be anyway. Just one of those, stories, like lots of stories. So
anyway. And you give them some extra spots and say it again the next day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Super easy to help.
So how do you work with some private schools and some companies and how does that work for you? What else do you do to make that come together? How are you generating your referrals? And I call them referrals rather than leads because leads can be anybody. So what does this look like for you?
It is word of mouth. It's all been word of mouth. It's been 100% referral since the get-go. And it's been talking to people just like this or being on stage. And I use that as marketing. Speaking, I use that as marketing. And that's been it. People talk to people. And if everything I do is 100% money back guarantee. If I don't do what I say I'm going to do, you get all your money back. No questions asked.
Nice.
Hands down. And so, yeah.
And how long is your typical program? Is it an annual, 6 months? What's the commitment when people sign on with you?
Yeah. If I work with a family of 4 and I'll usually visit them or talk to them every couple of weeks, one person in the family. So it maybe take 3 to 6 months for a family of 4. If I'm working with a company, it could be 6 to 8 months. It just depends on how many people are involved. Generally speaking, on the low end, it's probably meeting with them, I would say 4 times on the low end, and the high end would be 12 times. Okay. If I go to a school, Dave, I'll meet with them. I'll have 3 touch points at that school. So I'll work with the team, the counseling department first, so they know what is what, and the principal and the assistant principal. And then I'll go to the school and I'll work with the kiddos and they'll see me 3 times at a school.
Boy, that is so cool. I love education. I'm obsessed about promoting educators, and I am one. So I was surprised years ago when I was renting an office from a friend of mine, and I always wanted to have an office on an old-fashioned Main Street on a second floor looking out, and there's a Ben and Jerry's down the street, and we were right across from Davidson College. And of course, I was following basketball in San Francisco when I lived there, and Steph Curry, actually from the Warriors, was playing basketball across the street at Davidson College when I was there. My landlord buddy of mine, he said, Dave, I'm taking over as the brand new manager of the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. They're putting over $1 million in a bunch of studios in Charlotte. And would you come and teach? I says, what do you want me to teach? How to tell jokes? So he says, you'll think of something. So it was a trade school. So I loved it. I had to build my own curriculum because I was an independent contractor. but there was something about teaching that I just love, kind of like what you're doing, but and very, very structured. So I just love teaching and educating and helping people as well. All that to say, I am definitely a networker. When I moved in got out of the studio, went across the hall to be in sales, the company that I worked with was the largest privately held radio chain in Kansas City at the time. Very first contemporary Christian music station. So I got to interview a lot of celebrities and stuff, but it was owned by these two Jewish guys, Howard and Marvin. So Marvin Kosofsky out of LA, he's actually in the American Graffiti movie with Ron Howard and Harrison Ford. That's an old movie, right? He comes into town, takes the sales staff out to lunch in Kansas City. Is great for these steakhouses, of course. And so here's his entire sales pitch. He looks like George Burns, a short guy with an unlit cigar in his mouth. And his whole sales pitch to the sales team was, "Boys, you want to make more sales? See more people." So it's all about what I call TTP, TTMP. Talk to people, talk to more people.
Right. And I honestly, when I asked you before what your passion or your sweet spot was, I just worked with a 23-year-old, still working with him last week. And Dave, for the first time, like I did so long ago, he heard that he is an amazing mechanic. Like he's an amazing fix-it guy. And of course, school, that's hard to celebrate, similar to my strength, super hard to celebrate using your hands and getting your hands on the world. That's how the world's a better place. And for the first time ever, he said, "Oh my gosh, that's why when I was in school, all the teachers had me work on their cars, the principal, the assistant principal, all the administration." He said, "I knew I should have been a mechanic. I knew I should have." And I was actually accepted on a full ride to a school to be a mechanic. And a couple of years later, it shut down and he didn't have that opportunity. Right now, I said, "But you're not 40, you're 23. You know this about yourself," right? So now he is going out with gumption and muscles in the top and bottom jaw like a pit bull, going after what he knows he's great at, because the first time ever he heard that this is his sweet spot and that's his passion. So when I have people like that I work with, Dave, I feel like I've arrived. Like I'm like, okay, like I'm done. I'm good. Like that is so satisfying to me that I can help people in that capacity, just bring to light what they're naturally good at and have them be in their flow. And even taking it a step further, there's a career assessment that I do. And when I know companies, if I have companies across the country, then I'll set those people up with internships or informational interviews so they can see what that potential opportunity would be like. And that's a match made in heaven.
I absolutely love that. If I may share another brief little story, because my dad was a machinist for a company in Rochester, Bausch and Lomb and Kodak for a while. He always wanted to be a teacher. So he went to night school in his 30s to finish college. In the meantime, he got a teaching certificate at the Vocational Technical High School. Mm-hmm. And back in the day, it was like, well, all you dumb kids can go to the technical college because, you're not following the rules and going to English class, blah, blah, blah. But I'll tell you what, those guys got careers and, and so I'm thinking of your friend, the 23-year-old, and the town I came out of Charlotte, North Carolina, there is a huge school for training mechanics. Ford sponsors it, BMW sponsors it, and you can go in there and get hooked up with a dealership and get a job. I mean, that is so fantastic, because you're identifying, what I hear you saying is you are identifying, here's where your strength, where your power is, and I'm going to show you how to maximize that and get in the right lane, right?
Amen. 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 Yes and yes.
Wow. That's very cool. So how can I help you today? Do you have a book or a website that I can promote for you?
I do have a website. It's planstoprospercoaching.com. That's my website, planstoprospercoaching.com. And the best way to get a hold of me is Gail at planstoprospercoaching.com.
Excellent. And I'd like to ask this question, Gail. I'm speaking with Gail Swift, by the way, who's a fantastic Kolbe coach. And I'm going to go out and buy some cheese after this.
Perfect. Fill up on cheese. Perfect.
My last question is, what was the very first job you ever had, either as a kid or like a teenager?
I worked at Everything Yogurt in the food court.
Oh, my goodness.
And I would have to give samples of Colombo yogurt, which is 98% fat-free. And it comes in 3 flavors. It's chocolate, strawberry, and vanilla. And there's a twist too. And so I would be responsible for being out in the middle of the food court from 11 to 1 on a Saturday. And I had to give as many samples away as I could. And I got paid $3.35 an hour.
Oh my goodness. And how old were you at that time?
I was 15.
$3.35 an hour. That is so awesome. Think about, you could buy a snack with that.
Yes. Maybe a snack and a drink, if that. Yes. Yeah.
Well, this has been a lot of fun and a pleasure to meet you finally.
Yes, I agree.
Get our act together and connect. And I'm sure this will not be the last time that we connect on some projects together, I'm sure. I'm speaking with Gail Swift out of Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm Dave Henning with the Fresh Start Podcast, fresh ideas for business and personal growth. Gotta love it. Thanks, Gail.
Thank you, Dave. Bye for now.